Lance is currently the leader of the Contracts and Records Management section and has over 25 years of experience. He is a 1993 graduate of NDSU with a Bachelor of Science degree in Construction Management. He has helped lead the Construction Services Division with initiatives such as the CARS program, electronic bidding, and bid submission, e-construction, and recently electronic delivery and signing of contract documents. Lance, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Jeff. Today I'm going to talk about project records and stuff. So I got a few extra things that I'm going to combine with project records today. Like Jeff said, my name is Lance Bargmann. I'm the head of the Contracts and Records Management section in Construction Services, and Lori Peterson and Doug Peterson both work in that section with me. So I want to also thank Lori for her years of service to the department and to the state of North Dakota. We're going to miss her a lot around here. Let's go to the next slide here, which is talking points. Today I've got just a handful of talking points. This is probably going to be a short presentation, but I'm going to talk about the work zone, fuel cost adjustment, MOB, bid item, project records, some odds and ends there, flagging and pilot car. I have a few comments about how that is being paid for recently. Again, we'll request a sublet. I had this on last year, but I think it needs to be talked about again. And a little update on finals tracking. So the first thing I want to talk about is, if you've been out to the department's website lately, you'll notice there's a dashboard icon now on the lower right. And see, I've got it highlighted in yellow though. So if you click on it, there's another window that opens up, and there's 6 areas of emphasis that we're going to start tracking as a department. And one of those areas, when you look at those 6, is available roads. And that's why I show this little square here. And if you click on available roads, there'll be 3 other options with some gas gauge or tachometers or whatever you want to call it. And one of them is roads impacted by construction. So what that is we're going to be tracking the miles of state highway under construction at any point in time, this summer. So at any point in time means any day you go into the dashboard, that should be a real-time accurate number. So you asked, why am I telling you this? This doesn't affect me really. Well, it does, because how that system is going to track it is it's going to plug into CARS, and it's tracking your work zone activity. So this is an important module in CARS anyway. So now we're going to have another emphasis area to keep it updated. And the system is going to look at your beginning and ending reference point, and it's going to calculate the miles that way. So as long as you have your project on the map, those miles will be calculated and sent to that gauge. So this is just a reminder, it's always important to keep this work zone information updated, because Highway Patrol is using it for the routing system. Now we're going to be using it for another point of emphasis for that dashboard. And just another, everybody does a real good job, I think, of keeping this updated, but now it's just got another, excuse me, another emphasis point to keep it updated and keep your map comments accurate daily. Definitely, if you have any width, height, or length restrictions, we want to make sure you get those in there. But like I said, you're doing a good job. The only reason I point this out is because we're tracking another piece of information from this module. So just a heads up. Next slide is our fuel cost adjustment. And I talked about this last year because the following year I had such a issue with finding finals or checking finals, and the fuel costs were either missed or not even started. So I talked about this last year. I can't remember when we talked. It was in actually June or July. But anyway, I'd like to say congratulations. And none of the finals I've checked this year has anybody missed the fuel cost adjustment or calculated anything incorrect. So I just had to say it one more time so we don't go back to what we were 2 years ago. So I'll go through this quick. The fuel cost affidavit is located in the proposal. It's always in right after the contract, so it's in the first 10 or 12 pages, you can find the affidavit. On that affidavit, you'll find the contractor's prices and whether he's elected to participate or not. So if he doesn't participate, there won't be any prices. You don't have to worry about it. But if he does, if the contractor selects to participate, you'll see his prices. So then you take those prices from the affidavit and plug them into cars, into the fuel cost module. And just the 2 points I want to make about that again is the PQEs you're entering in Quantity Manager. The dates really matter with these, because what CARS does when it calculates the monthly totals, it's looking at the dates those pay quantities were entered into the pay quantity manager. So you want to make sure you get them entered within the a couple days of when the work was done. And I understand some of that can happen, such as like a borrow, where you're estimating quantities and then you're doing a survey at the end of the job and you're coming up with the actual quantity. What you really should be doing then when you come up with that actual quantity is post-dating that to when the work was finished or done, so you get it in the right month. Because with the fuel prices going up like they are, I anticipate there's going to be some large fuel cost adjustments again this summer. Last year all the adjustments seemed to go down. I think this year they'll be going up because the prices are going up. And then lastly, if your project is in liquidated damages, the fuel cost adjustment does not apply. So I'm just making sure you're aware of that. There's a icon or where you would check in the fuel cost adjustment module. It's liquidated damages exceptions, I believe it's called. So all you do is you plug in your dates that your job is in liquidated damages, and then the system will exclude any of the work that's being done during that time. The pay quantities that you're entering into the system would be excluded from the adjustments. So that doesn't happen a lot. If it does and you don't know how to handle it, just give me a buzz and we can talk you through it. Okay, mobilization bid item, or also known as the Phil Murdoff mobilization, is always calculated wrong on estimates bid item. And what we've done is we're automating this in CARS, and we're actually checking the updates for this right now. David Bruins has started doing some testing on our CARS test cluster to make sure this thing works right. And what it will do is totally take the mobilization calculation that the engineers make out of your hands. It's all going to be automated, so it'll be a pretty slick thing when it gets done. So we'll probably start it with a particular bid opening. So I'm not sure if we'll get it out into production before any jobs start. So I'm thinking the November jobs probably won't be included, but we'll try to get the jobs from the February bid opening in and then thereafter. So, but obviously we'll notify you. We'll probably put a message out on the CARS main menu when that's ready to go. Okay, project records. This first one kind of runs into what Phil's saying about prompt payment. There's still some times where I see final estimates where there's items being paid for that should have been paid for prior to the final estimate. And what I'm talking about is specifically items that maybe a subcontractor may have done, and you're paying for those on the final. It'd be great if you would just cut another estimate. They're all electronic. It's easy to do. Make sure you run one more estimate, and if you want to do the final the next day, that's fine. Let's see if we can get those finals down to maybe for sure the retainage, which is always there, and then maybe sometimes the contract bond needs to be cleaned up at the end, and that's fine to pay for on the final. Contractor quantities, there's still a few times where I find contractors' quantities being used, and we're not supposed to do that, and I'm going to have a couple specific examples. I'm going to talk about flagging and pilot card, and that's probably one of the main things that I see. And obviously we're using the contractor's quantities, the hull summaries, but engineers are checking it, so don't send me any nasty emails like I don't know what I'm talking about. So I understand that. So I'm talking maybe like even water is another good one that you'll see that some of the documentation has contractor's letterhead on it, and It's probably not the best thing to put in there. We did update the contract time for completion probably not quite a year ago, but the CARS program should be pointing to the new contract time for completion, and you have to download it and work off from there. That should be no surprise, hopefully, for everybody. There, I still see a few of the old contract time completion forms coming in. I guess it's fine. Hopefully that will end here shortly. I'm giving everybody the benefit of the doubt that they'll have it right by next year. And the last thing here on this page is I'm trying to save engineers some time when they're preparing their final documents. So combining forms on tied jobs, you can do that. It's encouraged, actually. You really should be. And what I'm specifically talking about is like good examples are seal coats, slurry seals, micros, anything where we're maybe have 3-4 tied projects on one contract. Really, you only need to do one final acceptance letter and include all the contract PCNs and project numbers on it. Let's see, contract time for completion is another example. You really only need to do one because there's only one completion date for those types of projects. And to combine those forms would be great. Save you some time, save me some time, and maybe we could declutter FileNet a little bit. I guess I'm done harping on that right now. Okay, flagging and pilot car. This is right out of our records manual. I'd like to see, and there's quite a bit of this form being used. I'm not trying to really be the heavy on this because it's being used, but there's still a few that aren't, and I'd really like to see everybody use this flagging and pilot car summary for their hours that they're reporting. It's just so much easier for us to check. We don't have to do any math. The form does all the math for you. And then I know everybody's doing this out in the field, but that's a tongue-in-cheek. But you know, when you get your certifications for flagging, it wouldn't hurt to make sure the flaggers that you're getting on the job are actually the ones that the contractor is sending the certifications for. You should be checking that, and I don't check it. I assume you've got that done by the time they come in here, but anyway, heads up on that. Okay, when I'm done checking finals, you will normally get a final checklist back from me. And most of the time, you know, you don't really have to do anything, everything's good, but once in a while I'll have some issues with the records, and I'm asking the project engineer to check on something or get something, and then, you know, they'll have to follow up with me. And what happens is I've got over 200 projects that I look at every year. And once I do the checklist, it kind of falls off my radar. So I'm really relying on you to get back to me with the requested documents or clarifications. Sometimes those get lost, and it may be a few weeks or even a month before I get notified, or I think that I'm still missing something. So make sure when you get the final checklist, you open it up. Don't assume everything's okay. And then the other flip-flop part of that is if the contractor's missing some documents that are required, and you've already noted that on the final records, and we've gone through and checked it and it's still missing, we send a letter out like the one on the right-hand side. And then that letter goes to the contractor, tells them what's missing. A copy will go to the project engineer. And then the same sort of thing happens. The contractor will send the documentation to the engineer because it says it's supposed to send to the engineer. They get it, and they don't send me what was missing. So, and that's another time where we may disconnect and take a little longer than we should to final out a project. So just a heads up, read your checklist and send me anything that is missing from yourself or from the contractor. Okay, request a sublet. These can be electronic. They should be scanned. You see the address there to Construction Services. And there's really 3 things that need to be done and are required for these things to be processed. You have to sign them. We still get unsigned copies. The contractor and sub sign, but the engineer doesn't sign. So then they'll go back. Make sure the subcontract agreements are attached. We need those with also. And then the 3 things you have to look for, that the subcontractor is either registered as a subcontractor, pre-qualified for prime, or a registered DBE. So if they don't fall into one of those 3 categories, you have to have the request or the contractor's registration request filled out. It's a form, and you have to get that before we can process these requests to sublet. And I looked just for the heck of it the other day on how many of these things we process in a year. So I'll give you a second to think. How many requests to sublet come through our office every year? Just think about that for a second. If you guessed 400, you're way off. You guess 700, you're close. But the last 2 years I checked, we averaged just around 900 of these things. So as you can imagine, most of those 900 come in May, June, July, and August, maybe in September. So make sure you get these things filled out complete, and then we can get them updated. And then once they get updated in the mainframe and in cars, then you can start doing your requests or your inspection diaries, because they'll be populated in cars. Let's see what else we got. Oh, Phil mentioned this also, the car's final tracking. So I'm just re-emphasizing what he said. Make sure you're filling this out. Status of finals is shown here. I put a yellow check mark, but when the engineers get it, it's always going to be review, not started. So as soon as you get your job done, you should fill this in to show engineer reviewing final records. That's one of the selections. And then make sure you're putting your comments in, how things are going, what you're waiting for. The comments will be date stamped and your name will be on them, and you can put as many comments in as you'd like. There's no end to that. So, and then make sure you put a date in when you submit the finals to the district. And like Phil had mentioned, we're using this for many different reports and stuff like that. So appreciate you all keeping that up. I think that is it for me. Yeah, that's it. So that's all I have. Jeff, you got any questions out there?
No, Lance,
Okay.
Thanks. That must have been really thorough for everybody, because no questions. So
Questions? I got one more slide then if there's no questions.
okay.
There's Phil's van. I updated it for him. Got the the current pick for him, so I know he's still trying to sell it. So